This video is for class 7, section 1. The topic is I Heard a Heavy Step. It is a fiction story by Bram Stoker. Moving on to the word meanings, we have solicitor, which means a lawyer, barrister. Second, count, which means a nobleman of high rank. Third, Transylvania, that means a historical region to the west of modern Romania. Another we have grating, that means an unpleasant sound. Drop, flow of cool air in a closed space. Threshold, which means an entrance or the floor at the bottom of the doorway. Another one we have hearth, which means the area in front of a fireplace. Octagonal, which means having 8 sides. Next we have famished, which means starved. Next, physiognomy, which means the characteristics of a person's face. Next, profusion, which means very large quantity. Next, protruded, which means stuck out due to illness or fear. Next, coarse, which means rough. Squat, which means short, wide and fat in an unattractive way. Next, grim, which means very serious. Nausea, which means wanting to vomit. Aquiline, which means someone who has a thin and curved nose. Ruddiness, which means healthy and red. Pallor, which means when the face turns pale due to illness or fear. Rank, which means strong or unpleasant smell. Characteristics. There are 2 characteristics in this story. One is of Count Dracula and another one is of a businessman, Jonathan Harker. I am going to explain you in brief about the characteristics of both these persons. First, Count Dracula. A king vampire, hundreds of years old, with supernatural powers and weaknesses. He is extremely physically strong. He can shapeshift into several different forms. He has hypnotic abilities and he can control nocturnal animals. And of course, he can bite other people and turn them into vampires as well. Another character is Jonathan Harker, a young Englishman lawyer. The first character to encounter Dracula. At the start of the novel, Jonathan is on a business trip to Transylvania to help Count Dracula to purchase an estate in England. At the time, he is unaware of the Count's true nature, and it takes an awfully long time. Many readers complain for him to catch on. His letters and journal entries make up a substantial part of the story. There is a short summary of the story which I am going to explain you in brief. This story is an extract from the popular Gothic horror novel Dracula by Bram Stoker. This part of novel describes the first appearance of Count Dracula, a young Englishman named Jonathan Harker travels through Transylvania on a business trip. He is there to aid Count Dracula, a Transylvania nobleman, in buying an English estate. His journey into the remote Eastern European landscape is fearsome, although initially he is charmed by the Count's generosity and intelligence. Gradually, he comes to realize that he is a prisoner in Dracula's castle and that the Count is demonic being who plans to prey on the teeming masses of London. Dracula leaves him to die at the hands of 3 female vampires, but Jonathan attempts a desperate escape. Now, let me describe you the features of Dracula in the view of Jonathan. In the starting of the chapter, Jonathan observes a tall man, cold hand like dead, clean-shaven save, for a long white moustache, and clad in black from head to foot, without a single speck of color about him anywhere. In the end of the chapter, Jonathan observes that the Dracula have a very different features. His face was strong. He had a thin pointed nose with lofty domed forehead. His eyebrows were very massive. His moustache was heavy with peculiarly sharp white teeth coming out of lips. His ears were pointed and pale. Chin was broad and strong and cheeks firm though thin. His hands were hairy and nails pointed. The general effect was one of extraordinary pallor, which means pale. Now here are some question answers from the book. First, it is an extract from the story. I heard a heavy step approaching behind the great door and saw through the chinks the gleam of a coming light. Question. Describe the sound that the narrator heard after he saw the coming light. Answer. Sound of rattling chains, clanking of massive bolts, key was turned with loud grating noise, and sound of opening the door. Second, what happened after this? A tall man opened the door and welcomed him inside the house. This man looked different and unique. Next, how did Mr. Harker react to what happened next? Mr. Harker reacted normally and followed the Count, who took him inside. Next extract from the story. Welcome to my house. Enter freely and of your will. Question. Who is the speaker? Count Dracula. What did the narrator do in response to this invitation? The narrator accepted the invitation and entered inside. Do you think the narrator's reaction was justified? Yes, the narrator's reaction was justified because he was tired and he had travelled a lot. As the Count leaned over me and his hands touched me, I could not repress a shudder. What made the narrator shudder? When the Count leaned over the narrator and touched him with his hands, and from his breath an unpleasant smell made a feeling of nausea, and this made the narrator shudder or fearful. What did the Count do in reaction to Harker's action? The Count drew back and gave a serious sort of smile, showing his stuck-out teeth, and sat silently until the wolves howled. Do you think the Count's initial action was deliberate? Yes, the Count's action was deliberate because he felt that the narrator was uncomfortable. How do you know the Count was pleased to hear the wolves howling? The Count was pleased to hear the wolves howling because he said that the wolves are the children of night and their music is good to listen. The hunter has to be ready to catch the prey. Now here is a question for you to solve. In your own words, describe Count Dracula when he met Mr. Harker. Learn the word meaning, question answers and characteristics given above. Thank you. Hope you understood the video.